Hello, this is Mr. Steinerson. I wanted to give you a quick overview of how to use the pivot data and graph to find other variables like velocity. Now, I'm going to use the pivot dry ice puck sliding as an example, and I've already taken the data. So you can see I'm up to 0.8 seconds, and I filled in the data table here. Every 0.1 seconds, I have the distance that the ice puck traveled down the ramp. All right, so good so far. So sometimes the questions are going to want you to evaluate your data and actually create a velocity time graph from this distance time. Now we know that in the distance time graph, you should see a curve and it should gently curve upwards like this. And we also know from some of the previous lessons that a curve on a velocity time graph indicates that, or I'm sorry, distance time graph indicates that it is changing velocity. So this object is accelerating. So if I want to find the velocity using the graph at, let's say, at the second interval here, so like between 0 and 0.1, if I want to find out what that average velocity is, or between 0.1 and 0.2, what I need to do is use the graph and the best fit line, knowing that slope of a distance time graph is equal to the velocity in that interval. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to go over here to curve fit, and I'm going to assign a linear fit, even though I know that it's not a linear graph. The reason I'm doing this is I'm going to turn off data points by clicking on them until I get to the data points that of the interval that I'm looking for. So I can't start at the very beginning because this first line here won't have an interval. So I have to go between 0 and 0.1 seconds. And then I can use the slope of that line, knowing that slope of a distance time graph is equal to velocity. That slope is going to then be able to tell me what the velocity is at that instant in the path, that average velocity over that interval. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to here and I'm going to add a column by clicking on the dots, and I'm going to insert a column to the right. Let's call this one velocity. And we're going to skip the first box. We're going to go to the second. And in this interval, now I have this curve here, and the slope is this a value. So a is 20. So I'm going to put 20 right here for my velocity. Now, of course, at the rise over run, our rise is in centimeters and our run is in seconds. So that unit would be a centimeter over a second. I'm going to keep doing this by turning on and off data points. So I'm going to turn on the next one, clicking on it, and turn off the last one, clicking on it. And notice I get a new slope. Now it's at 60. So I'm going to type in 60. I'm going to keep doing this all through until I get to my last interval. So now we're at 90, and so on and so forth. Now, if I wanted to, after I'm done getting this data, I could graph that as well, and I'd have a new graph, which is velocity versus time. So this is used in the pivots to find your velocity and add it to your data table. Thanks.